Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
Mark Schaffner, good morning and welcome back from Labor Day, everybody.
Yeah. And the image behind us, AI generated, it came from Grok, which is the X or Twitter version of AI. And it's turning out that it's actually doing a better job these days than OpenAI, DAL-E, ChatGPT. It seems to be progressively declining, getting cartoonish, pixelated, just not rendering well. One thing about Grok, though, is it doesn't have as large an image typically as the other ones do, like DAL-E. And but anyway, all I asked for here, the prompt was, give me a new studio automotive base in a high rise, futuristic with a VTOL outside. And it put a helicopter, but it looks like, it could be a
It could
VTOL.
be a VTOL.
Yeah. So this is the podcast where we talk about general EV type news, report on that, and then at 11 o'clock, an hour from now, we switch over to the Tesla Roadster podcast, and we've got some interesting information there. In fact, one of our engineers from Gruber Motor Company is going to be joining us, and we're talking about a flaw that occurs in the Tesla Roadsters where the vehicle management system just simply loses its mind and the car is disabled, and seems to be happening frequently. So we have some solutions. There's some things the customer can do, and there's some things that we do remotely, actually, that help put the cars back on the road. So in the meantime, we've got a bunch of items here in general EV. You have some items here you want to start with, Mark?
Sure. One of the first items that we had put onto our Facebook had to deal with a virtual power plant. The whole idea is a new concept that's being produced by a place called Octopus Power. It's a European article on ft.com, and I found the article to be truly intriguing. The idea that they're proposing is that, hey, you've got tens of thousands of electric vehicles, most of the time sitting, plugged in, fully charged.
Mm-hmm.
Why not take use of some of those vehicles to allow them to power the grid during the times of peak power and be able to then get power from the grid during times when there is non-peak usage or when power generation exceeds the supply exceeds the demand?
Sure, makes sense.
The concept overall is that today, with wind and solar power, there are fluctuations. If it's a stormy afternoon and it's really windy outside, there might be more power being generated than is available on the grid. Traditional power management has been where you could just shut down part of the grid.
Mm-hmm.
You would shut down the power plant that's generating energy because the energy is not needed. Well, now the power plant is kind of just always on. It's either sunny outside or it's windy outside or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the solutions right now have been what are being called supply side solutions. Think of the Tesla Megapacks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is saying, well, you could have demand side solutions as well, almost like microgrids. Every electric car is able to power its own house, or a dozen electric cars might be able to power a neighborhood. And the incentive could be that when there is a surplus of power, energy to go into electric vehicles is free.
Oh, interesting. Okay. There's a financial incentive
There'd
then,
be
yeah.
a financial incentive. Then, when power is needed from those electric vehicles to go back into the grid because it's a cloudy day with no wind type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
then the power could be drawn from the electric vehicles to balance out the demands of the grid.
Mm-hmm. Now, is there a payment now to the owner of the car, or is it also a free resupply of power?
Well, that's part of the incentive, is that it could be a free supply of power that goes into the car, and that the people who have their cars plugged into the grid and are allowed to participate in this program see reduced, or in some cases, zero energy charges, and possibly even some cases small payments
Sure.
for the use of their car. And I took and I thought, okay, well, how reasonable is this? So I thought, okay, well, let's see. Here at Gruber, we have, for public available use consumption, we have about 10 chargers, I think, right now. We have got a couple of outside chargers at the GMC shop.
Right.
At the EV Preserve, we have 4, and here at Gruber Power, we have 4. And if we had cars plugged in at all 10 of those, that would be, probably somewhere around 800 kilowatt hours worth of battery power that we would have plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ran through our electric bills real quick, realized that here at Gruber, our entire facility, all 7 buildings, we use anywhere from a 5 to 600 kilowatts of energy in a day in a 24-hour period in wintertime to about 12 or 1300 kilowatts in summertime.
Mm-hmm.
That means that these car batteries, even with as few as 10 chargers, we would have enough to help supplement the usage, kind of that ebb and flow of energy.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I thought that was just a really fascinating thing. Obviously, it's going to take cars that have vehicle to grid capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
What we do with the Teslas right now, the older Teslas and stuff, wouldn't work. But a lot of vehicles that are coming out with electric now are coming out with vehicle to grid capabilities as well.
Right.
It's a novel idea on the whole look of how do you deal with the growth in the electric grid.
The redistribution of energy. Sure.
Yeah.
Make it more efficient. The utilities in the U.S. at least, there are some very strict laws. For example, you have a solar system at your house and you
Mhm.
have excess demand. Now, you can park that inside a power wall, let's say, but even then, you may have exceeded the capacity with your limited usage. Try to sell that power to your neighbor, and you're in trouble.
Yes. Yes. And if you're selling it back to the power company, you're getting
Peanuts.
anywhere from 2.5 to 3
Yeah.
cents a kilowatt hour
Right.
because the power companies successfully lobbied the corporation commission to say we shouldn't have to buy power back at retail. We should be able to buy it back at wholesale.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I think you're right. I think with the proliferation of electric vehicles, this whole grid concept is going to alter and change. And of course, it's for the better if you think about it. We have all this excess energy that is going nowhere, basically.
Well, and if you have an entire neighborhood that can be supported, at least partly from, let's say, solar power on 25% of the houses,
Hmm.
now you've got what they are calling a microgrid. You don't have to have this massive infrastructure build out that people are fearing is going to have to happen.
Hmm.
That microgrid takes care of that neighborhood. The power is incredibly efficient because it all stays right there. It doesn't have to travel hundreds of miles.
Right. And this kind of ties into one of the other topics that we have here is well, how many electric vehicles are out there? And it
Right.
turns out that Norway actually is still leading the charge. Here's an interesting headline: Norway's August car sales, 94% electric, and Tesla Model Y led the pack. The rest of the statistics are that this 94% represents 11,114 cars that were sold in the month of August, and which is and the Tesla Model Y captured 19% of that market share with over 2,000 units sold. The other top sellers included Volvo's EX30 with 932 units and Skoda Enyaq with over 700. Diesel and gasoline cars made up just 2% of the sales in Norway.
I'm impressed, not only the 94%, but that it's distributed amongst such a wide variation of dealers. Here you talk the top 3 that accounts for around 35% of the market.
Mm-hmm.
That means 65% of the EV markets buy all kinds of other brands, and it's not just a one manufacturer game out there.
Right.
I'm very impressed, and being a Volvo owner, I'm familiar with the EX30. It's a very popular little car.
So the surge in the EV sales in Norway are driven by a few factors. One is there's some tax incentives that are very favorable in that country, and benefits like bus lane access and parking perks. So it sounds like the Norwegian government is very much committed to alternative energy. The goal is in Norway to achieve 100% zero emission fleet by the year 2025.
Incredible. That's going to be amazing. Of course, then the Norwegians will truly be able to blame London for all their pollution.
Right. Good point. Oh, we've got some people chiming in. Nalvers 53 How are you? He says, good morning to all. Let's have a beautiful day. You
Thank you,
bet.
Nolver. I'm
Uh, and we've got Instagram, Beacon Car, giving us a thumbs up. All right.
Thank you.
YouTube, High Voltage and Performance Racing Team. EV's Smoke ATX showing EV, lightning emoji. Love from Austin, Texas. Love what y'all are doing. Well, thanks for joining
Oh,
us.
thank you.
And then YouTube, Phoenix EAA. That's local EV Vehicle Association. You are the new battery improvement for real IEEE, no, IE 1 million mile cattle cells. Oh, it's a question. All right.
Yes,
Yeah. Are the new battery improvements for real? In essence, 1 million mile cattle cells. You know, I haven't been researching that. Do you have any information on the cattle cells?
I don't have a lot of information yet. I've heard that they've had changed their formula a little bit for making their batteries, and that that they have said that in the lab they can get, instead of the normal 2 to 3,000 charges out of a lithium ion based cell, that they've been able to multiply that by multiple factors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't have a whole lot beyond that, but that's something that I'll be glad to research, and we can talk about this next week.
Yeah. Of course, we know that battery technology is going to continue to improve. In fact, one of the
Mhm.
later articles here talks about solid state batteries in the GTR, and which reduces the size, weight, all of that. And then, of course, Jesse's vote on any of this is going to be fusion energy, which is also beginning to percolate and look a bit more interesting, especially with AI involved. So, our energy needs looks like the demand is creating a lot of innovation. Um, YouTube, Obertowski says, hello, Mr. Gruber. Thanks for joining us. Then we've got Nalber53 asking a question. He said, can you gentlemen clarify what Ford's Project T3 is? Somewhere in there, there is a new electric truck coming.
I know very little about it, but I know some. It's largely just what Ford's announced. They've got a new electric truck that they're going to um, put out. They're calling it a second generation truck. It's going to be built at their West Tennessee plant, brand new campus. And right now they're just code naming it Project T3. They're looking at trying to get the prototypes out in 2025, and they think that they're going to be able to have a once in a lifetime generational, um, use whatever, fill in the blank, um, game changer, revolutionary, you name it, type of truck.
Mm-hmm. Question also from Randolph Schnack. He says, since you do that kind of stuff, how much work would it be to make a Tesla be able to send power back to the grid? In other words, convert the later model Teslas. And I say later model Tesla because the T0, which was actually the genesis of Tesla in many ways, not created by Tesla, it was AC propulsion systems. But that car in 1997 had vehicle to grid. And Tesla did not adopt that in either the Roadster or their later vehicles. How much would it take? Really not much, but the problem comes into play is that it would then void all warranties because you'd have to modify things in the car. For example, the high voltage junction box
Right.
in the Model S's and the later vehicles would have to be rewired, redone in order to redirect energy, and then your NAX plug would have to be changed. So you could do it as a hobbyist experimenter, but you would have a one-off vehicle, and they would never let you into a Tesla service center after that.
Probably not.
But it's not very difficult. Yep. YouTube, Randolph Schneck also asks, how much work to retrofit this? Oh, how to do the retrofit. You know, that kind of question is pretty nebulous. And the reason I say that is once you begin to dedicate some time on a project like this, you not only have the mechanical parts, the buses, the rewiring, the contactor changes, but then you have software work that you need to do, and somehow you need to integrate that into the existing firmware, and that's when it gets unpredictable and dicey. A good example of that is we, with noble intentions about 6 months ago, opted to convert Tesla Roadsters to NACS sockets. It seemed like a simple thing, right?
Yeah, it seemed like a pigtail with a different connector.
Exactly, because both take AC. And then the complexities began to enter into the picture, which then included, well, what about a latching system so that you don't unplug, you don't do a hot disconnect? If you do a hot disconnect, you have a couple, well, you have a number of issues. One is you may get some arcing, and then your contactors or your the pins begin to erode. And then you have safety issues. Do you really want a hot plug, that someone could touch, especially if they're outside and it's raining or whatever?
Right, right.
And then the final one was there was a cool company called EVject that developed a breakaway connector for the later model Teslas. So if you're in a seedy part of town, charging in the middle of night, and you're in your car, and some unsavory characters begin to surround your car, you could actually drive away. Currently, with any kind of a charging type method with the Teslas, you have to get out and unplug before you can drive that car.
Hmm.
Well, it turns out that that car, EVject, was eventually sued by Tesla because there were some safety issues that they were ignoring, such as thermal management, temperature. There are temperature sensors in the socket and the plug. And without that, somebody's going to be liable if somebody A gets burned, starts a fire, whatever the issue is. So, to make a long story short, with noble intentions, our NACS conversion project has been shelved at this point in time because of all of those variables that began to manifest as we were developing the product.
Yeah, and retrofitting would have the same kinds of things. You just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, what you're getting into. Yeah. All right. And then Highlander joined us. Well, I guess no next conversion for those. Kindness is always free. Thanks for joining us, Highlander.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, this was unexpected. Here's a headline: the Tesla Robotaxi unveiling event, which is October 10th, by the way. It was delayed, if you remember. It was supposed to be in May, June, July, or something like that.
I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly when, but it was supposed to be earlier this year, and it got delayed to this fall.
Yeah. But the unveiling is going to be at on a movie set. Headline is Tesla plans Robotaxi reveal at California Warner Brothers studio. And again, October 10th in Burbank. And this really isn't the first time that Tesla has connected with celebrities or with Hollywood. The Roadster reveal actually was done at in an airplane hangar with a lot of the Hollywood types invited.
I could take this a couple different ways. In one sense, it's a studio. You can do whatever you want. You can set it up such that the cameras are there. And I mean, you could have a cardboard box and they can make it look like a car.
Good point. Yeah.
On the other hand, think about like Universal Studios. And Universal Studios is known for having the live studio, which you also have the tours, the tram tours.
Right.
And Warner Brothers is a large studio lot as well. What if you were able to set that up as a city environment with all of the various obstacles and people and things, and then demonstrate that the car will work in all of these unusual environments?
Well, you may have just hit on the ulterior motive for this. It doesn't talk about that in this article, but Tesla is usually full of surprises.
Yeah.
And that could be a valid reason for
I
having
could
that.
totally see that being the reason
Yeah.
why they do a studio like that, as opposed to trying to hide things or conceal or make things false, that they're going to set up some sort of an obstacle course. And it's a real world type of obstacle course because it's a studio that has those things available to it.
Good point. Well, the way the article reads is big news. Tesla is gearing up for a monumental reveal on October 10th at Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank, California. They're set to introduce the highly anticipated Robotaxi, also known as the Cybercab. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
This isn't just any vehicle. They say it's the future of transportation, blending cutting-edge technology and the allure of Hollywood.
I love that the concept picture that they have there. It looks like it was AI generated. It has no front seats. Did you notice that?
I didn't know. It's only back seats.
Those are two back seats with a large foot seating area. To me, that's just fascinating.
Yeah.
I'd love to see if that's how it looks.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point because those seats definitely look like rear seats, and I don't see anything in the front. Now, this is a conceptual design. I don't think we have the final design yet, although AI has all kinds of ideas
Oh,
about what it
yes.
could be. So that will be part of the reveal. They say, imagine a world where autonomous vehicles dominate the urban landscape. Tesla is making that vision a reality. Stay tuned for more updates as we count down this groundbreaking event. You won't want to miss what's next. All right. Crunch to Grace Hopper's joining us. Haven't seen you in a while. Thank you. He says, seems like I may have figured out how to rejoin you guys on a regular basis. Kind of still missing YouTube somehow. Anyway, my question of the day is how or where might I hybridize my retired, spun up monthly Mazda RX 8 with Tesla power, a battery for track and occasional long range use? It's been replaced by a 2022 Model 3 Performance and a 22 Model Y long range FSD Tesla. So no rush. Well, all right. That question was actually asked earlier. How to create vehicle to grid on these vehicles? I'm assuming is what we're looking for here.
Well, it might be in it. It might be that he's looking to do an actual conversion of his RX-8 into an
Oh, I'm sorry.
electric.
Yes, the RX-8 conversion. Yeah. Well, that then takes us back to the discussion we had earlier. How much work is it to create vehicle to grid on a vehicle that wasn't designed for that? Um,
Yeah,
these are fun projects, guys. Don't get me wrong. If I was retired and I had lots of time on my hands, that's probably what I'd be doing in my backyard, or in this case, at Gruber Motor Company,
sure,
right?
sure.
But it is a fun project, but with all kinds of twists and turns. What we're still waiting for, and haven't yet seen any viable large scale options anyway, are companies that make plug and play EV conversions for various vehicles.
Yeah, that's been pretty limited. We saw something and reported on something a few months back about a Volkswagen. That was, I mean, I don't know that there is a simpler car than the old style VW Bug.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some conversion kits for that. Nothing like what we're talking about here, though. They were low power. I tell you, if you're going to do a conversion like that, figure out how to get your hands on a Lucid EV motor because it's smaller and about a third of weight of the Tesla motor and provides just as much power.
Good point. Yep. Yep. YouTube Hollander says they could turn this Warner Brothers demonstration into a small mini movie. Now that would be awesome, and it'd be free on YouTube. What could be better?
Very true. Very true. On TikTok, Redemptor Ocampo says, thanks, guys, for all the information with a thumbs up. Glad to have you on today.
Oh. So the legendary GTR, Nissan's flagship sports car, is set to go electric with solid-state batteries. It'll be the first Nissan car to use solid-state batteries, and they have hinted that these solid-state batteries could give the GTR even more power than the ICE version. And the type of power they're talking about is it's going to be capacity of 1,000 kW, more than 1,300 horsepower. For comparison, they say the most powerful Tesla Cybertruck or Cyber Beast can produce 845 horsepower. So all this power, they say, is going to be backed by a new electric transmission with fully solid-state batteries. I'm going to be interested to see how they handle all that torque with the transmission.
I am too.
Nissan's vice president of global product planning, Ivan Espinoza, said that such batteries make sense in sports cars because you can fit a lot more in half the space.
That's one of the things we've talked about with solid state batteries.
Mm-hmm.
You can either get a lot more battery in the same space or just as much battery in a lot less space. So I'm very interested to see how this goes. And I'm with you. At some point, somebody's going to make a transmission that is strong and robust enough to be able to handle this torque.
Mhm.
And then watch out when it comes to speed. Holy cow.
Then we're gonna see these EVs hit into the top speed ranges,
Yes.
the 300 mile per hour type cars that we're all waiting to have on the road. All right. Porsche says no to fake gears in EVs. What'd you think of that article?
I agree with Porsche on that article. Apparently Hyundai Ioniq Hyundai's Ioniq 5 has a version coming out that has what is it, simulated shifting or?
They're trying to mimic the feel of an 8-speed dual clutch gearbox. And again, I just don't see the point.
I don't either. And I read the article behind this from Porsche, and apparently Porsche doesn't see the point either.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably a better plan. The original Italian supercars, yeah, part of the experience was banging gears. And they would give you up to 6 gears with some of those cars. And if you learned to drive a car, a standard drive car, then you were used to working a clutch, and it was fun because you had a lot of control over what was happening, going
Yes.
into turns, coming out of turns, that type of thing. And it was tactile. It was also engaging a lot of senses because the whine of the engine told you when to shift. You
Yes.
didn't have to look at your tachometer and your red zones and all that. Once you learned to drive your car, that was all part of the experience. But then even the Italian supercars began to shift over to electronic gear shifting with paddles on the wheels.
Yeah.
And so I know where we're headed. I know that, eventually all you're going to do is get an accelerator, or all you're going to have is an accelerator pedal.
At some point, I'm sure that's exactly what it's going to be. And your car is going to be smart enough that in those conditions where braking is truly needed, it will brake.
Hmm. Yes.
I love the point that uh, Lars Kern from Porsche made. I was looking at the article. He said, "We considered it." He said, "But what's the point of making an EV feel like a combustion engine when it's not?
Hmm.
It's the instant torque in an EV that makes the EV fun. But why would you try to get rid of that by putting in gears?"
Right. Good point. There's an image we can throw up, Jesse. It's called Global EV Sales. This was an interesting graph. The headline says global electric car sales are on track to grow strongly again this year, reaching about 17 million. And I mean, you've heard the news. Is it fake news? Is it real news? EV sales are down, all of the FUD that surrounds that. But this was an interesting take based on some facts. And they say that global electric car sales are on track to grow strongly this year, reaching 17 million, with more than 1 in 5 cars sold worldwide in 2024 set to be electric. The rise of EVs is transforming the auto industry and the energy sector. And you just have to kind of wonder, what are these old car companies in the U.S. thinking when they are shutting down functions regarding EV? Scaling back like Ford with the pickup truck.
Right. That's to me what makes that announcement from Ford so intriguing. That new West Tennessee plant, they're cutting their assembly area by a third by building it from scratch for EVs.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like they're trying to copy Tesla a little bit, maybe.
Mm-hmm. And you really have to ask yourself, those of you that have been around for a while, a decade or so ago or more, did you really think that by now we would have this much EV adoption on this planet and this much excitement around that whole concept of alternative energy transportation?
I honestly didn't. And yet at the same time, when I saw EV adoption starting to explode across the globe, the United States prides itself on being a leader in whatever.
Mhm.
It's kind of the American culture. And at that exact time, electric vehicles have become politicized, in my opinion.
Mhm.
The concept of driving an EV has turned into this progressive liberal versus conservative political thing, and that I think has done more to hinder adoption of EVs than anything technologically.
Interesting you mentioned that. We have a video that we've been working on, and the basic premise is that you can tell a lot about a person by what they drive and how well they take care of what they drive.
Hmm.
And we've got a video that we're working on about Kamala. What kind of a president will she be? And we're looking at her car ownership history to make some deductions about that. It'll be a fun
Oh,
video.
that'll be fun.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching that one.
All right, bunch of comments. Instagram, Solar Ambala says next generation EV still to come. Very true. We're going to see some different methods of storing energy, and that's what I'm most excited about. Again, the basic question is why carry over 1,000 pounds of batteries with you when you're driving somewhere?
Right. Randolph Schnack on YouTube says, on the racetrack, unlimited power is fine, but I shudder to think of 300-mile-an-hour cars being driven on public highways.
You know, that's been the age-old question, and you're right. There are going to be some dangerous drivers with that much power. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but driving skills seem to be declining.
I heard a saying or read a saying from a state trooper here in Arizona who was talking about people who like to drive 90 miles an hour plus on the local highways. And he said at that point, most of these people don't realize you're not really driving, you're just pointing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of pointing your car in a direction. You have no time to react if something happens in front of you. Considering it, momentum is a square of mass times speed, 300 miles an hour is so much faster and so much less time to react.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's got a great comment there.
Highlander remembers I had a 69 Roadrunner. He says, tactical on a 69 Roadrunner, it was arm breaking. You know, I took that 69 Roadrunner to the quarter-mile track one day, and I think I pulled off like a 13-second quarter-mile run, and I was pretty impressed with that.
That's not bad for that car.
Nowadays, Grandma's car with her Model S is going to pull a 10-second quarter-mile run. Instagram, Jabu Brown, I totally enjoy driving an EV, but still love engines. I think our generation is going to be conflicted. I agree with you, Jabu.
Yeah. And then on YouTube, Niels is joining us. He says, 10 years ago, I did think EVs would take off, and I told everyone. Now I think EVs will level off and grow only slowly, while everyone else thinks they're going to keep growing fast.
You know, the only thing that plays into that, Niels, is the mandates that have been set in place by a number of countries and states here in the United States, where they're banning the production of ICE vehicles after certain years. 2035 is the one that's most universally, I think, common for that goal.
Yeah, and Europe has those bans in place. The United States is, with California kind of leading the way, and and there are so many states that have laws that say effectively, whatever California does when it comes to like the environment, we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so when California said, was it 2035 as well in California?
It was, yes.
So that's population-wise, roughly a third of the United States is going to be transitioning out of the sale of new ICE vehicles.
Mm-hmm. You have anything else you wanted to cover?
I don't think so today. I think we're about at our time, and it's been a great half hour. Man, it's gone fast.
Yeah, it usually does. Join us in 28 minutes for the Tesla Roadster Show if you're interested. We have one of our engineers is going to be joining us, and with some information about how you can keep your Roadster running when the vehicle management system loses its mind, which is a bug that has been plaguing the Tesla Roadsters for some time. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Take care.